Today we're going to start into one of my favorite topics, and that is genetics. We'll start with basic Mendelian genetics, that is the theories of Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk scientist. And then in the next unit, in Biology B, we will go into modern genetics and how this fits with our understanding of cell biology. So let's go ahead and get started with a review of meiosis. So meiosis is how sex cells are formed. So how genetic information is passed on from one generation to the next. And to start off with this, we'll tag onto our idea of our question of what is meiosis and how is it different than mitosis. Let's review mitosis. And this is how cells normally replicate, how they duplicate themselves. That's the 5 stages of prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis. I find mnemonics helpful, so if those help remember, it's like please make apples, tarts, and coffee, or people meet and take cookies. Come up with your own is even better than using these. And it's a way of remembering the order. If you don't remember how mitosis works, please review the previous unit and make sure to understand how that happens, because in meiosis, it happens twice with some key differences. Let's look at those key differences. First off, there's an event called crossover. And this happens in prophase 1, so the first rounds. And what happens then is the homologous chromosomes, that is, for example, chromosome 8. You have one chromosome 8 for your father, one from your mother. When meiosis begins, these chromosomes cross-link. So normally like this, then after chromosomes they cross-link and they swap genetic information. This forms a recombinant chromosome and kind of shuffles up which alleles are with which alleles. So it increases the genetic diversity with each generation, or at least the potential genetic diversity. But this is one of the key drivers of evolution, is this genetic diversity. And we'll talk about that concept in Biology B. All right. So we talked about crossover, which happens, as we said, during prophase 1. However, in this process, chromosomes duplicate only before prophase 1. Even though there are 2 prophases, DNA is only duplicated once. This is how we end up with 4 distinct gamete sex cells at the end. Let me think. So, pause. All right, got my thoughts back in order. So remember, we go prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis. Happens almost like normal the first round. Remember that crossover event. And then in meiosis, the cell immediately turns on and does it again. So in prophase 2, new spindles form, and these attach to the chromosomes. In metaphase 2, they line up in the middle. Remember this happening in both of the daughter cells. And then anaphase 2, they're pulled to the sides. And in telophase 2 and cytokinesis, the cells split and the nuclear membrane reforms. Important to recognize that at this point, after telophase 2, we have 4 distinct cells. And they're distinct from their parent cells. And also, they have half the number of normal chromosomes compared to the rest of the somatic cells, the body cells. So, again, DNA does not replicate before meiosis 2. Chromosomes do not cross over again in the second round. If the DNA did duplicate, we'd end up with more daughter cells that have the same number as the somatic cells. That's not what sex cells are for. All right, so let's compare these two. So in mitosis, we get 2 identical cells, identical to each other, identical to the parent cell. In meiosis, we have 4 different gametes. They have distinct genetic information from each other and from the somatic cells, from the parent cells. And also, as the text goes on, in females and mammals, this creates 1 egg and 3 polar bodies that go with it, whereas in males, it creates 4 sperm cells. Right? In mitosis, DNA is duplicated exactly without any differences, whereas meiosis, there's intentional variation in the system. Mitosis has 1 round of cell division, meiosis has 2 rounds of cell division. So that's meiosis in a nutshell, kind of a review of mitosis as well. We will go talk about this some more in class. Next up, we will be talking about Mendel's experiments and what he kind of noticed for the first time about how traits are passed on.